Last week, a federal appeals court ruled to cancel Trump's tariffs. The battle is going to the Supreme Court next. I've been doing some digging into this case, and what is actually going on is shocking. I'm going to show you what is being covered up by the mainstream media. Let's start with a big picture question. Are the Trump tariffs unfair? If you remember, on April 2nd, Trump held a press conference he called Liberation Day, where he announced sweeping tariffs.
If you look at that, China, first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. So 67%, I think you can, for the most part, see it. Those with good eyes, with bad eyes. We didn't want to bring, it's very windy out here, we didn't want to bring out the big charts because it had no chance of standing. Fortunately, we came armed with a little smaller chart. So it's 67%, so we're going to be charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%. I think, in other words, they charge us, we charge them less, so how can anybody be upset? They will be, because we never charge anybody anything, but now we're going to charge.
So China was charging us 67% tariffs. Let me stop there. Just let that sink in. If an American company wanted to sell goods in China, they would charge us a 67% tariff. What Trump was proposing was going from the US charging China no tariffs to charging only 34%. So we would be charging them half of what they are charging us. How is that unreasonable? I think it is unreasonable that the US was charging 0% tariffs while they are charging us 67%. And it's not just China, it's all the countries. What Trump was proposing in most cases was to charge countries half the rate they were charging us. Now, the argument against Trump's tariffs was that it was going to destabilize the economy and crash the stock market. But it has been 5 months since these tariffs were announced in April. Not only has the stock market not crashed, it has skyrocketed. This is the S&P 500. This is when the tariffs were announced. This is where we are today. In fact, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has been reporting that the tariffs have been incredibly successful in raising money.
Well, look, the president's tariff plan brought in more than $28 billion in July, a fresh monthly high. Tariffs are becoming the third largest source of income for government. And the last time you were with me, you told me that you would expect $300 billion in tariff revenue. But I think you are increasing that expectation right now, aren't you?
I am. So I think August, September is going to be a very good test. I've been saying that I think we can take in $300 billion, and as the Treasury Secretary, I like to be conservative, but there's a chance that I'm going to have to substantially upgrade that number. And Maria, the way to think about it for your viewers is every $300 billion is 1% of GDP.
They are forecasting $300 billion a year, the third largest income source for the government. So again, I will ask the big picture question here. Are the Trump tariffs unfair? They are bringing in tons of money. The economy is doing great. It's only half the tariffs that other countries are charging. Who is against these tariffs? And yet, someone is battling in court to overturn the tariffs. What is really going on here? Are these people who actually care about the tariffs, or are they just trying to get Trump? Let me explain the court case. After Trump announced his tariffs, he was sued by two groups of people. One was a group of 5 small businesses that dealt with imports and exports. A winery, a plastic pipe manufacturer, a company that made science kits for children, a company that made fishing tackle, and a company that made cycling clothing. The second group was a group of states including Oregon, Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Illinois, Maine, Minnesota, Nevada, New Mexico, New York, and Vermont. As you can tell, These are all states with Democrats in power. So already you can see that this is politically motivated. This is not really about the merits of the case. This is about getting Donald Trump. The lower court ruled against Donald Trump, who appealed the decision. Now the federal appeals court has ruled against Trump. The appeals court has 11 judges. 7 ruled in favor of terminating Trump's tariffs, and 4 judges opposed the ruling. Of the 7 judges in favor, 4 of those judges wrote an even more extreme concurrence opinion claiming that the appeals court did not go far enough. The appeals court just overturned these specific tariffs, but the concurrence opinion argued that Donald Trump should not be allowed to issue any tariffs in the future. This was a devastating outcome for Donald Trump. His only option is to challenge the decision at the Supreme Court. The tariffs will all remain in place until October 14th, giving the Supreme Court time to make a decision. But if the Supreme Court does not overturn the appeals court, it would cancel the majority of Donald Trump's tariffs.
Saying regarding that federal appellate court that ruled against you and your administration as it relates to your ability.
Well, they ruled against our country, the court, and they ruled against us before. It's a very liberal court. We're going to be going to the Supreme Court, we think, tomorrow, because we need an early decision. I mean, look, the financial fabric of our country, we're a rich, incredible country right now, and we're able to, other countries use tariffs on us for years, and we never did.
When Donald Trump talks about liberal judges, let me show you what he means. One of the judges who was part of the extreme concurrence opinion was named Leonard Stark. He is from Joe Biden's home state of Delaware. He was originally nominated to be a judge by Barack Obama. Before that, he worked as a co-coordinator for Michael Dukakis's presidential campaign against George H.W. Bush. He was also an alternate delegate for Bill Clinton's campaign. This is someone who has been deeply involved in Democrat politics, and now he is attacking Donald Trump. But it gets crazier. These 5 businesses that are suing are very small businesses. How is it that these extremely small businesses are setting the economic policy for the entire country? They don't have the resources to sue the government and take the case to the Supreme Court. How are they doing this? It turns out that their case is being completely paid for by a group called the Liberty Justice Center. Guess who funds a large part of the Liberty Justice Center? A Republican billionaire named Charles Koch. Charles Koch has been a big money donor for the Republican Party for years, and he does not like Donald Trump. He formed a group called the Americans for Prosperity that spent $42 million trying to ruin Donald Trump's campaign. Do you remember Nikki Haley? Their goal was to try to get Nikki Haley to beat Donald Trump as a Republican candidate. Do you understand what is happening? It is the Republicans who are trying to use this lawsuit to take out Donald Trump. Charles Koch is a billionaire who did not get his way during the election, and now he is funding this lawsuit through the Liberty Justice Center. In my opinion, this is a vindictive, petty billionaire who's willing to destroy the U.S. economy because of his own Trump derangement syndrome. Let me explain why I think Charles Koch is doing this. This is all allegedly, because obviously I cannot read his mind. But in my opinion, this is what I think is going on. Charles Koch owns one of the largest privately held companies in the world, with a large presence in China. It has been reported that Charles Koch employs more than 23,000 people in China. With such a major portion of his business operating in China, there is a real possibility that he is being blackmailed by the Chinese Communist Party. At any moment, the Chinese Communist Party can tell Charles Koch that he can no longer do business in China. There are many examples of the Chinese Communist Party pressuring foreign business owners just like this. China obviously wants to go back to their old arrangement where they paid 0 tariffs. So what we see happening is an alignment, where you have the Chinese Communist Party, the Republican Uniparty, and the Democrat judges in D.C. all working together with this court case to try and get Donald Trump. Let me explain what the law actually says. Donald Trump issued these tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. This gives the president broad authority to regulate a variety of economic transactions following a declaration of national emergency. So the president will declare an emergency and then order the economic transactions, whether it's through sanctions or tariffs. In the case with Trump, he declared two emergencies, one on the drug crisis and one with our growing budget deficit. These are both huge problems that can be solved with tariffs. This same process under the IEEPA is how the US has operated for decades. Here's a chart showing some of the actions taken under the law. One example is Iran. The president identified that there was a problem with Iran. He declared it an emergency, and we've been using different economic sanctions against Iran for the last 40 years. Now let's look at the actual wording of the law. It is extremely broad. 1702A1B says, presidential authorities. The president may regulate importation or exportation. This seems pretty clear to me. I'm showing it to you in black and white. Congress wrote this law, giving the president the power to regulate imports and exports. They did this because obviously Congress cannot pass a bill every time the president negotiates with a foreign country. The president needs that power, which is why it is in the bill. If Congress feels that the president ever oversteps his authority, they have the opportunity to pass a resolution telling him to stop. They have decided not to. So now we have a handful of liberal judges in DC deciding how the president should implement global economic policy. Their argument is that the law does not specifically include the word tariffs. They are claiming that the law gives the president the power to regulate through other means except for tariffs. The law does not say that, but they think that is implied. I think that is a very weak argument. If we go back to my original example, China was charging the US 67% tariffs. According to these judges, they say the president should not be able to do anything about that. I think that's ridiculous. The American people want the tariffs, the president wants the tariffs, the Congress agrees with him, and these judges are trying to seize power and overturn the other two branches of government. This is not right. The courts cannot just write new laws on how they think tariffs should be implemented. And the law is written very clearly that President Trump has this power. Now, I do not want to oversell the public support. Most polls show roughly 60% of Americans oppose the Trump tariffs. But this level of support is not unusual for a hotly contested issue. In fact, I would argue this is a much higher level of support than most political issues. It is clear that an enormous amount of Americans want these tariffs. Let me explain to you what will happen if the Supreme Court does not overturn this decision. It will destroy the entire global economy overnight. Number one, all the new trade agreements are going to be contested. For the last 5 months, the US has signed all new deals with countries from Europe to South Korea. They are all going to tear up their agreements. Number two, all the countries that have paid tariffs so far are going to ask for refunds. I really don't know how this is going to work. We are somehow going to have to pay back all the billions of dollars we have received. How? We've already spent the money. How are we going to pay this back? Number three, it will undermine the president's ability to negotiate around the world. This is the worst, because all of a sudden the courts are going to take away the power of the president to negotiate economic deals around the world. How is the president going to conduct any kind of foreign policy? It's going to be a disaster.
It's a very important decision. And frankly, if they make the wrong decision, it would be a devastation for our country. We've taken in trillions of dollars. And by the way, all these countries signed agreements. As an example, they're all happy. Everybody's happy. But some whack job put in a lawsuit. If you took away tariffs, we could end up being a third world country.
Hasn't that
That's how big the ruling. So we're asking for an expedited ruling.
I cannot emphasize this enough. If the Supreme Court does not overturn this decision, it will destroy the global economy. Not just the US, the entire world. Because all of a sudden, the President of the United States will not be able to make global economic deals. Everyone is impacted. These recent court decisions are so absurd. We have the Chinese Communist Party and a petty billionaire trying to screw over the American people. Can these judges for once stop trying to get Trump and instead try and do what is right for the American people? Now, most people have been thinking that the Supreme Court will overturn this decision, but I am not so sure. Charles Koch has been a driving force in the Republican Party for a really long time. He knows the Supreme Court justices. Here's a photo with Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas standing next to documentary filmmaker Ken Burns and David Koch, who was Charles Koch's brother. This was at a Koch Network donor event at the Bohemian Grove in Northern California. Here's a photo of Charles Koch wearing a hat with the logo of the Grove showing an owl. Here's a photo of the schedule showing Justice Clarence Thomas as a speaker at the Bohemian Grove. Justice Neil Gorsuch and Justice Brett Kavanaugh both took teaching contracts at George Mason University in Virginia, which sent them on all expense-paid trips which covered their travel and living expenses to Italy, Iceland, and England. At this same time, a $10 million contribution was made to the program by the Charles Koch Foundation. My point is that there is no guarantee that the Supreme Court is going to side with Donald Trump on this case. Tariffs are the one thing that Trump has done that we have financials that are telling us it is working. This is a good thing. This is going to make us all rich. Why in the world are we stopping this? Are these people insane? Why would we stop this? The law says the president may regulate importation or exportation. It does not get any more clear than that. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think the Supreme Court should do? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. If you find my videos helpful, consider signing up for a membership on my website, wolvesandfinance.com. For $6 a month, your support helps me to keep making these videos. Thank you to everyone who has signed up. I'm Zach from Wolves and Finance. Thank you for watching.